Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Monday. Following up with Week 15, today is December 13th. Jeff Erickson here with special guest host, our good friend Alan Seslowski. You know, he's reached that Jimmy Kimmel on before he had his own show status now.
Joan Rivers filling in for the Tonight Show.
Yeah. And Harley filling in for Triumph, the Comet insult dog.
That's right.
He's just insulting us right now. But anyways, how was your Week 14?
You know what? It annoys me because I did really well this week, but I wanted this to be the first week of the playoffs because I know now that it's not going to be like that with the real playoffs. This would have been an epic win for me across the leagues that I had made it in. So, there was a lot of high scores, a lot of pinball scores, a lot of injuries. If you're in I'm in a super flex league where my quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. I'm sure we'll get into all of that. So,
let's start with that. Yeah. Let's start right there because I do have Lamar Jackson in the RotoWire Stake League. I've got him in. I think I might have him in the. Do I have him in the Vegas league with you? No, I'm not sure. You and I are both crushing it in that league.
I have Lamar in the Vegas league.
Okay, you have him there. Okay,
yeah.
No wonder you're. And if you have Lamar, you're doing well. There's no way around that. There, you are doing really well if you have Lamar. Now I got to pull up and see who I have in that league. I know, but I just know in our particular league, you have high points. I have second high points. I have the best record. So it's I know it's a league that Liss doesn't care about, so it doesn't get much airtime here, but
no, but it's an important league because it's a pride league. It's internal. It's like one of those leagues where you've been playing in it with all of your company mates, all of your office mates forever. Yeah. There is some pride in that league, and you guys have talked about it on the air for years as well. But here's the question for you: in those leagues, are you going to be able to trust Tyler Huntley? I mean, he looked all right from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
Yesterday, he got you about 17, 18 points. Would you actually start him in a playoff game next week?
We were asking the same question of Taysom Hill last year. It's not the same. I think Hill's a better runner, but I think that's the sort of thing that you think about. I think it depends on what you have, what your setup is in terms of who you're going against, who else is available. Like I'd have to look at honestly, I haven't really broken down the Week 15 matchups a whole lot yet, but that'd be a big part of it there. Who does Baltimore get this week?
I'll look that up while we're talking as well. But again, it's you're looking for someone who could break the slate, right? I mean, matchups are important. Yes, obviously, when you do your weekly rankings, you get into the matchups but it's like, can you just trust this guy? I mean, can he he had about 50 yards rushing yesterday? Let me look it up right now. He
had 20 on that one scramble. That was pretty crazy how he made 7 people miss and then drew the penalty too on top of that there.
Huntley had 270 and 1, and he had 45 yards rushing. So
home game against Green Bay, by the way, for the Ravens.
That seems perfectly, I know the Green Bay defense is fine, but it's you're not you'll start him there. I'm talking about in these superflex leagues where
you're starting them,
so you're not even, and then in one QB, I mean, you're going to pick like Tua? I mean, who else is going to be out there? Ryan, are you psyched to start Ryan Tannehill right now? I mean, any of those guys?
Not really, no, because he has nobody to throw to still. That remains a problem. By the way, we are done with buys after this week, finally. So, but Tennessee gets at Pittsburgh. Not the scary matchup that you think it would be, but as we saw on Thursday night, you can exploit Pittsburgh. But we'll see. TJ Watt got hurt again. The Watt brothers having a tough health year. I think it's going to be tricky. We're going to be watching Josh Allen's status. We're going to be watching Aaron Rodgers' status. Last night, after the game, he said he had a setback with his toe. He also threw for 4 touchdowns and 300-plus yards again. It was awesome. But Josh Allen had that ankle where he got tackled, made it through the game. But often we know with ankle issues, it's the day after is what you worry about.
Yeah, with Josh Allen, they already said that no matter what happens for next week, that Mitch Trubisky is going to get first-team reps in practice. Not all of them, but some of them.
Right. Just because they have to be prepared. That's smart, of course. You have to think that way.
And you and I have talked about Trubisky as a pickup in these leagues. And if he's commandeering a good offense, Mitch Trubisky is not as bad as he displayed on that bad Bears team. I think he's probably going to be functional. He's probably a high-level backup, maybe a low-end starter in the league. And for fantasy, that's someone, that could be a sneaky ad, Jeff, a sneaky ad.
I was just going to say, you may hear his name later on today, and we're going to do that right after this podcast. We're going to do sneaky ads for the video there, but just a little sneak preview. We're going to have lots of quarterbacks to talk about.
Sneaky preview.
Davis Mills might be a decent start too, Alan. He threw for over 300 yards. It was 14 for 14 to start the game against Seattle. Houston's kind of a dumpster fire, so they fell off the wayside late, but they get Jacksonville this week. Yeah, Urban find the leak Meyer instead of trying to plug the defensive leaks, he's trying to plug the communication leaks.
I mean, take cover, Urban Meyer. You were under attack this morning from every article I've seen on Twitter, on social media, on ESPN. Probably rightfully so. It's the chickens are coming home to roost right now. And, you saw the clip of the two receivers, Laviska Shenault, bumping into each other. It's like, just blame it on Urban Meyer. It's unbelievable. But you originally you were talking about. You were talking about before you said that you were talking about which quarterback?
Oh yeah. Okay. So Davis Mills,
right?
Or Huntley.
Right. So Davis Mills, by the way, you mentioned him a few weeks back, and you made a really interesting point in one of the videos we did for YouTube, is that you were puzzled why they were benching him. Like, you have to see what you have, because if he actually performs for the rest of this year, they don't need a quarterback next year. They can, when they trade Deshaun Watson, say they just get 3 first-round picks, then you can actually build around Davis Mills. So I think Davis Mills, they were talking about him in the draft as like a fringe first-rounder. Mario and those guys didn't love him when they were doing his rookie analysis. He had tore both of his ACLs in college. But I think when he's on the field, he actually shows like he's a credible quarterback.
At times. I think there's home field Davis Mills and road Davis Mills, and we'll see the difference. But it is Jacksonville, so maybe not. But I'll go one step farther. Even if he's not the guy to build around, you still might eschew going with the quarterback around. It's not a great quarterback class. It's a classic mistake to push up a quarterback just because it has to be a quarterback. Go get yourself a, take care of the ball veteran if you have to, as you're building a team around it. You don't have to get your franchise quarterback in this next year's draft. If it doesn't exist, don't force it, is my point.
Yeah, someone like Gardner Minshew, which you've mentioned on your SiriusXM show a bunch of times. Teams are playing hot potato with him right now. He's got one more year left on his contract. It's under $1 million. He's a real value. He's going to be traded for a 3rd-round pick to some team that needs a veteran to stabilize. I think a place like Houston makes a lot of sense if you don't have trust in Davis Mills. That makes a ton of sense.
I think the Eagles may still be in play for next year too, though. I know they're saying Jalen Hurts, if healthy, is going to start again this upcoming week, but I don't think the verdict is completely in on Jalen Hurts.
Oh, I totally agree. But is it him, or is it the coaching staff hasn't found a way to utilize him properly? Think about this. When Jalen Hurts and Tua were both on Alabama, it was Jalen Hurts that was the starter. He was the guy all year. It was that he kind of floundered in the championship game. Tua came in and basically won the game for them. And then the next year, Tua was the starter, and Jalen Hurts had to go to Oklahoma. Jalen Hurts was, he was the same class as Tua, and he was the announced starter for most of the year. So if you like Tua, it's like, I don't understand why people are so quick to dismiss Jalen Hurts. But, I do, he hasn't looked like a traditional pocket passing quarterback, and, that doesn't have sustainability in the NFL. So I do understand your point.
Yeah. I think he's been a excellent fantasy quarterback, but I think a lot of games, the results have been lacking in terms of his passing. And it doesn't mean he's done developing. It doesn't mean that, he's unsalvageable, but at the same time, I think you have to ask the question. It's much like you have to ask the question of Trevor Lawrence. And I understand all the malaise going on with the Jaguars right now. He could be getting ruined right now. He also could be Jamarcus. I hate to say it, but he's gotten worse, Alan. If you watch any of that game yesterday against Tennessee, he was terrible.
Yeah, I think that everyone is going to universally, in the fantasy community especially, going to give him the mulligan from this year. Yes, it looked bad, but I think the default explanation is going to be the environment. Like what would Mac Jones look like on that team? What would Trevor Lawrence look like on the Patriots? I think I know that's easy analysis, but here's the real question. Do you think Shad Khan and the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to cut ties? I mean, we all assume they are. Sometimes, when you buy a stock or you buy something you invest in and the value's gone down, 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 you're not so quick to cut bait with it, especially when you have to, what is he making, like $8 million a year or something like that? And they still owe him a couple years.
Yeah.
How do you handicap if they're even going to cut Urban Meyer completely?
Well, and I think one of the points here is they might just have a terrible owner too. And the Malays might go all the way to the top.
And what's interesting is the son, the Tony Khan, has actually made the competitive wrestling, fake wrestling league that competes with the WWF. He's actually made that successful. So they have.
Well, and I'm sure Khan is, he's successful in other walks of life. That doesn't, there's a lot of owners in pro sports that are successful in life and horrible in sports. So, it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes they fall into it too.
Yeah. We need to do on RotoWire.com is we need to put like front office rankings.
I think we should do owner rankings.
That's all part of it, right?
Well, this summer on Sirius XM, we might be having to do owner drafts because, if baseball's locked out, but we'll see. That might be one of our drafts, all-time owners or current owners, or I don't know.
So who is the all-time owner? I mean, I know you were talking about for baseball to fill content and there's no season, but who is the number? I mean, is there someone, the team owner, team president, whatever, that strikes you as the best right now in football?
Right now?
Or top fiver? I mean, is it Robert Kraft?
Oh God. I mean, I think, that's the thing is I think, you can't argue with their track record, but how much credit does he get towards that? That's the question. A perfect owner is one that just writes the checks and doesn't say a word, but doesn't get arrested in a massage parlor. But I don't know.
You know where that's going. That's real man only gets massage gets arrested in massage parlor, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
no, so go back to what you were saying. You're making an interesting point. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, are they having buyer's remorse? Are you optimistic? Let's say that they do get a credible coach in there, like not someone that's going to light the world on fire, but like a Ron Rivera, CEO coach, someone that's going to stabilize the franchise next year. How confident would you be in Trevor Lawrence moving forward? Like, where do you think his 22 ranking would be among quarterbacks?
It's pretty low right now. I mean, I got to see it. I got to see something. And I also look at the personnel on this team, and I know like this is a really bad roster too. I mean, that's part of it, but and what credible coach is going to want to take that job? I guess it's one of 32 NFL jobs, so maybe just that's your response. But
Jeff Fisher, he's looking for a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're going to have to bring in a credible coach that, again, not someone that's going to light the world on fire, but someone that can just exactly what Washington football team did with Ron Rivera. No one was like, oh my God, they have Ron Rivera. Maybe, nobody likes Mike McCarthy as a coach. I mean, that's literally the only thing wrong with the Dallas Cowboys, but maybe someone like him that's at least, has a track record of coaching teams and not just, that could be interesting. But I would think that Trevor Lawrence is still a top 20 quarterback, but in single QB leagues, you're not going to be too worried about him. But there's still put it this way. Would you trade in Trevor Lawrence if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars for any of the rookie quarterbacks that you've seen this year?
I might for Fields, but we'll see. I think Fields is pretty good, actually.
Me too.
Maybe Mac Jones too. I mean, probably not Mac Jones, but we'll see. It's so hard. It's totally grating on the curve with them. Meanwhile, and we got a total incomplete in San Francisco. One start all year and brief appearances and a couple others for Lance, but that's one of the big shocks of the season to me is how little Trey Lance has played. I don't understand.
From what I've read, and again, I listen to a ton of nobody listens to more podcasts than I do. I'm convinced by that. So I listen to a ton of podcasts. I listen to your radio show every day on Sirius XM, and I read a ton of articles. And from the pieces that I've gathered, that Trey Lance is not only, he's not even close to playing right now. Like, he hadn't played all of last year. He had played only a handful of games at a smaller school. And yes, he's probably the best athlete, but we know at this point that, professional football is way more than it's reading. It's pre-snap. I mean, that's what really differentiates. So yeah, I want to see, why'd you trade up to go get him? It makes no sense. And they at least should be integrating him into the game plans. But I mean, obviously you're not going to see him this year. And again, people will be speculating next year. What do you think that they do with Jimmy G if they make a playoff run with him?
I mean, that's a good question. It's a really good question. I think one of the takeaways here too is expectation levels, the way they were set. I mean, I think that has to be part of it there, that I think we had these wild expectation levels for Lance. Oh, he's going to be awesome. He's going to do this. And, he didn't really, I think the Niners really didn't do much to quell it, but at the same time, they didn't say Lance is going to play. They didn't say that, hey, he's going to get a chance to start. They pretty much said Garoppolo's the starter. We just, in our mind, set this expectation. If the Niners had come out this season and said, all right, we just want him to develop, that would be one thing. But they didn't say that either. They didn't say like they didn't do it like what the Chiefs did with Mahomes or the Bengals did with Carson Palmer. They pretty much just left it nebulous for us.
They spoke with their actions, though, right? They pushed in their chips at the poker table, and they went up and got the quarterback that they thought was, the next person. They didn't give, I think that they probably had immediate buyer's remorse on that, because imagine what they could have done with the picks that they gave up, right. And they probably still, and they still have Jimmy Garoppolo. I think when the 30 for 30 is written on this game, that we're going to find out that it was Kyle Shanahan probably pressured into taking him, or, the other way around. I mean, you heard all the Mac Jones stuff in the preseason, but I think it's more interesting. I mean, we already know how it's going to play out for the rest of this year, right? Jimmy G is going to be the quarterback. The 49ers are going to be making a playoff push, and they're going to be a dangerous team if they do make it the way that George Kittle and the rest of them are playing right now. But it's really interesting to think about for fantasy football, which is why people tune into this show, is what is going to be for next year. We're going to talk about
I think Garoppolo's got another year left on that contract. I was just looking that up, and I think he's got another year. He signed in February 2018, a 5-year deal. So my math isn't the strongest, but I believe that in 2018 through 22, that would be. So unless there's some sort of buyout, the way NFL contracts are, I mean, I'm sure there's, I can get more clarification on that they might just find a way to get out from under that. But
you could trade them. You could I mean, there's going to be teams that are interested in Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G to the Jaguars. There's your solid, quarterback there.
Yeah, I mean, that it's going to have to be more of a contender, I would think. I mean, so if the Cleveland Browns really do have cold feet on Baker Mayfield, they'll be looking for a solid veteran, someone that can give them while that Super Bowl window is theoretically open. So somebody like that. I mean, it seems like our discussion is really centered around the quarterback. So I mean, which I think is interesting, because that really does drive all of the fantasy value. If you are the Cleveland Browns moving forward, if you are talking about general managers and team owners, if you, Jeff Erickson, were the team owner, would you be giving Baker Mayfield $35 million and be locked in for 4 more years with that?
I don't think so. I mean, the way that Cleveland let Baltimore back in the game by being deathly afraid of letting Baker Mayfield throw the ball, yesterday. That's at least the coach's point of view from that. I don't know, man. I don't think he's a guy you stake, so much of your cap room on. I think that's the biggest part. It's just, I think that really drives a lot of this here. You get that second contract for a quarterback, it just takes up so much cap room.
He's not giving a discount either. He wants to be paid like a top 5 quarterback.
Of course.
And so they're either going to have to do one of 3 things. Is obviously give him that contract, do the Kirk Cousins franchise tag thing, which I never think is a good thing. Just either do, you've seen what you've seen, it's not going to be different in a year from now, or just say, that's it. It was a good 4 years, 5 years, and let's move on. It's going to have to be one of those 3 things.
Right. I mean, what they can do is just say, hey, play this year. And, I guess you could franchise him 1 year. 2 years is the thing that was too crazy about Cousins. That's what creates the animosity, if you will.
But if you're not convinced, and that's, that Super Bowl window is open right now. And again, we could argue if they're the 7th best team, the 5th best. I mean, they're one of the AFC teams that you wouldn't be surprised if they made a run, because they have such a good running game. But if you're not convinced, what's another year going to do? It's like, either move on or stay with him. I mean, I hear what you're saying. The half measure, oh, let's see one more year, but that's just, that's just going to therapy before the divorce, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're not convinced that your improvement isn't there, that's why you do that. Because at least you got someone that is a caretaker, not a caretaker, but is acceptable, if not someone to build around. I don't know. That's why you would go the 1 year route. But I hear you too.
Yeah. Can I ask you another quarterback question?
You can, and then we're going to do a quick read after that.
All right. Well, I'll tease it. I want to talk MVP for a minute. So you go and do the read.
All right. Let's hear from our friends from WinBet real quick. If there's one thing we appreciate here at RotoWire, it's making good decisions, and even more so making the right decision, like when to do this read, for instance. Listen up, folks. I have an incredible offer for you with RotoWire's newest partner, WinBet, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WinBet is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's Fantasy Podcast. WinBet brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more are at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WinBet's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at Baccarat. WinBet is currently available in 6 states, or it's actually 7: Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. So much that they could probably update this read with those. Anyhow, at WinBet, the possibilities are limitless. WinBet is currently offering all RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WinBet now. That's WYNNBET. WinBet, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's Fantasy Podcast. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Alan Soslowski today. Team of Destiny is still the Team of Destiny, but they're recuperating from just a stressful weekend. So we'll talk Team of Destiny later on the SiriusXM show. So, okay, you wanted to ask me about MVP. Fire away.
Yeah, so I think one of the most fascinating things, the storylines, narratives in this season is the NFL MVP, because nobody's running away with it. It's like one of those horse races where number 4 is up, then number 2 takes the lead, and now they're coming down the back stretch here. So it might just be a clean slate. In your judgment, who do you think are the, without even looking at the Vegas odds, or if you want to peek, that's fine too. But who do you think are the legitimate 3 or 4 contenders that we should be looking at? Like, I'm crossed Lamar off now. He's injured. He's not going to miss a game. He hasn't been playing well. So who are the 3 or 4 players that you think can actually win it?
I think Brady's obvious. I think Rodgers still can win it.
I
understand the narrative is against him a little bit, and football writers are notorious for bringing in their biases to votes a little bit more. But I mean, it's hard to ignore what he's doing. He's playing so well, Alan. If Brady does fall short at some point, they fall behind, and then I think Rodgers is next best. I only see it as those 2 guys, to be honest with you. I think maybe Taylor can make a case. Colts actually backed into a playoff spot yesterday with the Bengals losing, and other teams losing. But they have to make the playoffs, and the bias is so strong against running backs that I think it'd be very difficult. But I really don't see any other options. Maybe Justin Herbert, but he's had his share of bad games too.
Yeah, I think that, okay, so we agree that Brady and Rodgers are the 2 front runners, and the odds say so as well. Josh Allen, for some reason, I don't know if this has been updated after this week yet, but Josh Allen heading into the week was actually the second favorite at plus 450. I think that was a sucker's bet the whole way. As good as he's been, I mean, at best, they're going to be the 5th, 6th, or 7th seed, right? I mean, they have a tough schedule coming up. So I think, we've correctly identified the 2, but Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray are the 2 long shot bets. Who knew we'd be talking about those 2 as long shots?
Yeah, I was remiss in not mentioning Murray, probably because he didn't play yesterday. He plays in the Monday night game. I mean, they do have the best record in the league.
That's and he's only missed 3 games. People think he's missed more than that. He's only missed 3 games.
And with 17 games, that matters a little less, especially if he tears it up down the stretch. I don't think you're voting strictly by stats. I think the MVP is a narrative vote sometimes, unless the stats just blow people away. Say, because I know there was buzz earlier in the season. Hey, Brady's going to kind of go try to break the touchdown record. I think that buzz has cooled a little bit, but it's still there. I think Murray is solidly in that consideration. And the way that the Chiefs have won, I think Chiefs have won 6 in a row. It's not because of Mahomes. Is the funny thing, but we've seen with MVP votes like that doesn't matter sometimes. Sometimes people look at that. So if the Chiefs rally and get the number 1 seed in the AFC, yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think those are the four right there. I know Liss talked about Cooper Kupp as a long shot bet. I mean, it's still a long shot bet. It's a great bet if you can get the great odds on it. It's unlikely to happen just because of the position and, like you said, the narrative. And Brady really is the perfect narrative. I mean, it's unbelievable that he did another fourth quarter comeback yesterday on a game that was back and forth. And I mean, they were up and then they were down. It was. I mean, did you watch that game yet? Did you rewatch it?
Yeah,
the Bill. Yeah. That was the best game of the day, I thought. And so I think those are the four guys to look for. And it's basically a clean slate. It's like whoever does it from here on out consistently is going to be. So where people are talking about like, oh, there's no elite teams, and I think this is one of the best seasons that we've had in the last 5 years. It reminds me of an NCAA tournament that's wide open.
Yeah, I mean, the parity is great, but excellence is great too.
Yeah.
I like seeing truly excellent teams, and I don't see that. But you know what? The Chiefs are coming together, and the defense, during this winning streak, the defense has powered it, and every week they're stepping up. Now, they're beating up on Denver, the Raiders twice. The Raiders have kind of fallen off, but the Raiders put up a big number against Dallas on Thanksgiving. I mean, it's not like they haven't had their good offensive games, but they're creating. The Raiders have been outscored by 77 points just by the Chiefs, basically. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you correctly identified that the Chiefs defense is really what's been making the difference, and they're sitting out there on waiver wires for your fantasy playoffs. Just, I wouldn't even worry about who they're playing, their matchups. The last 3 games, Jeff, defensive scoring varies from league to league, but
first play from scrimmage, for crying out loud yesterday. That was beautiful.
Unbelievable. So 17, 17, and 28 fantasy points over the last 3 games. I mean, if you get 10 fantasy points out of your fantasy defense, you're like, okay, fine. It didn't kill me, but I think that you could just like pick them up and play. And like I said, they are widely out there because people are slow to adjust, or they stay with the Rams defense in a bad matchup. So, we can even add them to our sneaky ads for defense.
Yeah.
Watch until the end for a bonus sneaky defense.
Right. Definitely. Big game Thursday night. Chiefs at Chargers. Chiefs only have a 1-game lead, and the Chargers beat them. So this is a massive game. The Chargers win this game, then they get the tiebreaker over them. That it's through all the struggles that the Chargers have had, that they're only a game out. But that's just the whole point of the AFC. Through all the struggles that Team X has had, here we are. You look at the Ravens; they're still in first place in the AFC North. Despite all the injuries that they've had, and they've had massive injury problems. I think the Lamar injury looks bad, by the way. I think the way how quickly he was ruled out. I'm not the sprained ankle theorist or expert that Chris Liss is, but
here's the thing, though. Even if he plays, Jeff, are you going to be comfortable playing him in fantasy football? Right. No. That's so. If you're a Lamar manager and you've gotten to the playoffs, and Lamar, like I said, he's had his peaks, but he's been fine. You start him every week, you don't think about it, but it's time to start thinking about Tua as your QB next week, or whoever it is that's out on your waiver wire.
I have that combo in 2 leagues. I have Lamar, and then I picked up Tua for Lamar's bye week, and I just held on to it. Actually, I had to cut him in, I think, the stake league just because.
And he's been fine.
Spots are tight, but yeah, Tua's been excellent since coming back.
No, excellent compared to what he originally was doing. I mean, he's
also excellent is maybe not fantasy wise, but excellent for what they expect out of him. He has been a very good game manager. The Dolphins were so bad early on. They still have a negative points differential, by the way. They've won 5 games in a row, and they're still negative 34 in the season, but they're also 6-7. But that just shows what a hole they dug themselves to start.
Do you think he's earned another full year next year? Like, I mean, I guess it will.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I mean, there was. I mean, one of the biggest quarterback narratives was, when are the Dolphins going to trade for Deshaun Watson? I mean, and that's still going to be floated out there. Deshaun Watson's going to be on another NFL team next year. So.
Speaking of bad owners, by the way,
right.
Right. Stephen Ross would be very. If we had a worst owner draft, he'd be one of the guys we'd go after here. He'd be a target. Really bad owner.
And the reason, like I said, that I think that it's very important to talk about where these quarterbacks going to end up, because it really does affect everything for fantasy football. I mean, depending on if, there's 3 teams that have 2 first-round picks and that can make a trade for an elite quarterback next year, right? The Jets, the Giants, and the Eagles. Both the Jets and the Giants have first-round quarterbacks that they've cooled on that probably have some value, to a team. So someone like Russell Wilson is going to be in play too, and that's going to affect Kadarius Toney next year, Saquon Barkley. One of the notes that I wrote down here is, one, I want to get your take on the Russell Wilson thing, and 2 is, where are you going to rank Saquon Barkley next year? I know you have a long time to think about it. You're doing baseball projections right now, but someone like that, it's like, you can't have him as a top 8, 9, 10 quarterback, running back next year, Barkley, but you get Russell Wilson out there, and maybe the whole dynamic changes again.
If Barkley goes off in the last three or 4 games, then I'll have to revisit my decision. But I want to be tempted to write this year off, but at the same time, he kind of looks. I mean, running backs go and they go quickly. Ask Todd Gurley. Gurley had the massive knee injury, and so did Barkley. So I am kind of concerned about that. Is what's going to happen with him going forward? It stinks, but here we are, like ringing. We have such a bias towards young running backs, and you look at Denver and wringing our hands with Melvin Gordon. Oh, why is Melvin Gordon getting all this work? Melvin Gordon's actually playing pretty well. If you actually watch, I know I have Javonte Williams everywhere. I love Javonte Williams, but Melvin Gordon is playing well. The fact that he won't go away at age 20, ancient age of 28. 28, Alan. That's young. 28, but not for a running back. It's like women's tennis all of a sudden. We have to wash these guys out of the league after 4 years. Otherwise, they're ancient again.
Some of the running backs, I mean, you've talked about on your show a bunch of times, someone like Frank Gore. Now, not the 34-year-old Frank Gore, but 28-year-old Frank Gore was a good player. I mean, he wasn't this, dynamic fantasy player that he was when he was a first-round pick in fantasy leagues when he was 24. But Melvin Gordon he's a professional running back that, he knows how to do everything all the things that the coaches like. He knows how to block. He knows how to pick up playbooks fast. He's got a nose for the end zone. He's never been like this elite athlete. He's just good at football, and it translates to fantasy. His game does translate to fantasy. Yeah. And, if like yesterday, when you saw when they took that bully approach where they were using both running backs, both fantasy running backs can get paid. Obviously, the passing game suffers a little bit. But, I think that next year's rankings, when you talk about these young running backs, Javonte Williams is going to be a top 5 running back in the dynasty world. And, we're going to be doing our dynasty podcast as soon as the season's over. We're going to be talking a lot about him. But someone like Saquon Barkley, he's going to be 25 next year. That's not old, but he's been beat up. He's been broken. I mean, I'm not going to want to draft him above any of the elite young wide receivers. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Dynasty wise, it's really interesting. Like Jamar Chase or one of the, how high does he go? Finally had that huge fourth quarter of Bengals. Oh, hey, targeting your best players more often with some urgency. Who knew that would be a good strategy to try to do that a little bit more often? But still, I mean, he returned to form. He had to drop on the very first pass he thrown to him yesterday again. That's still a little bit of an issue, but my God, he gets open so often, that I'll still take that. It's just, I think it's Deontay Johnson all over again. He'll get over the drops.
Yeah, you're talking about Jamar Chase, and just a little plug. We're going to be making the Superflex Dynasty rankings live in about 2 weeks on RotoWire. So that's new. Awesome. Nice. So that's as Superflex becomes more and more popular, 2 quarterback leagues, and Dynasty is seeing a resurgence in popularity too. It was the right time to release these rankings, but Jamar Chase is one of the interesting ranks that we have, and Justin Jefferson is going to be our wide receiver 1 on RotoWire for Dynasty. He just has that longer track record. And if somebody wants to argue and put Jamar Chase as the wide receiver 1, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It wouldn't be my personal ranking because as you saw yesterday, your team, your Bengals have 2 alpha wide receivers, 2 wide receivers that are going to finish inside the top 20 every week. And one of them, which is probably going to be a top 12 wide receiver on the weeks that the other one isn't. So I can't say for sure that T. Higgins isn't going to be a better wide receiver over the course of 3 and 4 weeks. And that's why I think Jamar Chase, as great as he is, as open as he gets, can't be the top ranked wide receiver over Justin Jefferson and, possibly CeeDee Lamb.
I can buy that. I buy the yeah. I think Chase versus Lamb's interesting because they both teams
Similar.
have three wide receivers. Although Cooper's older, so that
28.
Yeah, and again, old man. He's 28. He's older.
Right.
But that's the NFL for you.
And one of those wide receivers may not be there though next year. Michael Gallup, I think he's heading into free agency. If they don't tag him and keep him, or if I don't know what their money situation is, so it's possible that it's a two wide receiver sets with a tight ends next year. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Indeed. You as a dynasty guy will have to dig into a little bit more often.
Oh yeah, can't wait. I love this. Isn't it? I think I have a sickness with this. I could literally talk about that dynasty stuff all day. I was starting to write down topics for the pod, and the list goes on like 7, 8, 9 pages. I think I like the off season better than I like the in season.
You don't do baseball, so there you go.
That is it. That is it.
Viva la difference. I mean, good for you and Mario. I think Mario does a little bit of baseball, but Mario and John are talking all season long too. I mean, I'm pretty honed in on baseball during the summer, and then I come back. I lose some cred because of that. I get that, but hey, it's just I've always been a multi-sport analyst.
Yeah, I would disagree with losing cred. I think that the fact that you're able to do all of these sports and golf and do them at a high level is credibility. And the thing that I was saying is that I also, when you talk about baseball too, I see your ears perk up, and I love when people talk about their things that they're passionate about. And It's the same thing. Like, listen, you love football. You grew up on football. It's probably one of the first sports that, you had exposure to. But it's funny that it's like when you talk about, and what do you think it is? Am I right though? Baseball is the sport that, you love them all, but baseball's the one that gives you a little bit.
Baseball's my number one. Yeah, without a doubt. It's baseball 1, football 2, golf 3. Hoops and hockey are still there. I mean, I still, college sports I'm into, especially when my school is good. But I'm still into it. I mean, I love soccer, and I've grown to love soccer. Because my daughters played and I coached, that got me into it, and that made me start following at the professional level, and now I'm way into it. So it's pretty cool. Are you
kind to the referees?
I am a referee, as well as a coach. But so yes, I will say my opinion at times, but at the same time,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. In my pregame, I referee high school basketball, as you and I have talked about. So in my pregame speech, I always tell the coach to say, let's be the example of healthy communication for everybody on the field. That seems to be the trick.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
You should give that pregame speech to Liss. Tell him that you want healthy communication when he's interacting with you on the show.
He would turn that on its head. I know. That wouldn't work. But yeah.
Yep. Back to football.
We got to take care of a little bit of business here. I'm going to give you a couple of reads right now, and then we'll wrap up some topics for the rest of observing this week, because we could talk to it forever otherwise. But the man won't let us, because the man's making me do a Sirius XM show too. The NFL season is heating up, and Yahoo is going big on daily fantasy football this season. There will be a ton of big prize contests throughout the year on Yahoo, including their multi-entry contests now being shark-free. To celebrate Yahoo going big on DFS, as well as Yahoo Daily Fantasy becoming shark-free, Yahoo is giving all users the opportunity to claim free $10 in site credit. Users can take advantage of this free $10 site credit offer to join any paid contest, including Yahoo's biggest contest, the weekly $1 million DFS NFL Baller Contest. The weekly $1 million contest features $1 million in total prizes, including first place receiving $100,000 and tons of overlay and prizes. Play daily fantasy football on Yahoo this season. Visit sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy/welcome to claim the free $10 offer to get started.
Can I tell you that if you haven't played Yahoo Daily, you're missing out. The interface, I was kind of like heard about it. I play on some of the other sites, but then I actually went and just like play around with it. The interface is amazing. The pricing structure is unbelievable. The game is really good. I'm not just saying it because they're a sponsor. Yep. It's worth checking out if you have never checked it out yet.
I always think that they have the most robust prices.
Yes,
they're quick to adapt to the situation. I mean, you'll find some bargains every once in a while, but there's usually no gross oversights. So that's one thing I think that they do a really good job of.
So Jeff, on the podcast that we're going to be doing as we take over for you guys as you go into baseball in January, is what we do is we scan Twitter and we take some statements off Twitter. and then we're going to react to those statements. So I pulled a few of these things from yesterday's games off, and I'm just curious of your reaction. Would you indulge me for one or two of these statements?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. First one I thought that was interesting is Taysom Hill is Tim Tebow. He makes 3 plays a game, and he gets you home for fantasy.
He definitely gets you home for fantasy. I don't know if Tebow gets you home for fantasy every single game. I think that might be some of the difference. I think he's better than Tebow. I think Tebow was a good leader of men, but although I don't know that for sure, but I think that that reputation might be over the top anyhow. But Hill makes a lot of mistakes too. I think he's actually a better thrower than Tebow. And he hasn't tried to play baseball yet, as far as I know. But
and Tebow came up yesterday because it was that pass to Demaryius Thomas. I mean, everyone was talking about Demaryius Thomas that lit the that what was it? Was to beat the Steelers? Was it with the Steelers that they beat in that playoff game? Yeah, I mean that was so they were showing
so
Tim
he could
Tebow
throw at times, yes,
at time. But they were showing that highlight a lot on some of the games, especially that when they were doing the Demaryius tribute, because that's obviously one of the signature plays.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another one for you. Ready? Okay, here's the statement I pulled off Twitter. I won't even tell you who said it. Micah Parsons is not only rookie defensive player of the year, he should be getting votes for actual defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I can get behind that. He's transformed the Cowboys. Why hold lack of experience against him? I think he's in the conversation. Who else would you put there in that conversation?
I mean, Myles Garrett, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he?
I think Myles Garrett's the winner. Yeah, I think he's probably the winner. But the fact is, Parsons definitely deserves a vote, down ballot votes, if not first place. But yeah, and I think he's run away. What a transformation job he's done with Dallas, though. That the first half of that game where Dallas was just smashing the football team left and right, and that was Parsons driven the whole time. That was impressive, and you saw that all along.
Yeah, he was getting sacks. He's all over the field. I mean, he's a difference maker, and it's funny that the Cowboys forever. I mean, it's always that they had a poor defense and a great offense, and that seems to be turning around. That's going to make them dangerous. Okay, I got one or two more for you. If you're are you enjoying this game?
I am.
Okay, cool. Because I like your takes on things. I hear you talking about it. And all the time, you're always asking other people questions. So I like to ask your questions. I want to pick your brain a little bit.
Okay.
Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end in the NFL still.
Might be. I'm going to say no, only because I think you have to hold his fragility against him a little bit there. Not fragility. I mean, he's a big guy who would smash me if I called him fragile, but his injury history, that matters. Being on the field matters. Mark Andrews doesn't miss games. Travis Kelce doesn't miss games. Kelce is definitely on a downswing right now. Another bad game yesterday, fantasy wise.
Do you know how many targets Gronk has over the since he's been back for 4 games now? How many targets is he averaging per game?
About 10, right?
It's 8.5. He's gotten 8, 9, 8, 9.
Yeah.
And Godwin, did you see the day that he had yesterday? As far as 15 targets again.
And this is 2 weeks in a row. Godwin's been a target monster. It helped that this game went to overtime. But yeah, Tampa Bay, when weather is not an issue, is just a beautiful thing to behold. I mean, whether it's in the dome or if it's a home game, they just roll. They're just so fun to watch.
Godwin's a free agent next year. I mean, they're not going to let him go. I mean, obviously they'll franchise tag him or do whatever they need to do. I don't know what the money situation is there, but I think he is a player whose contract is more or less expired. I'd have to look it up. I'm just talking anecdotally, but I'm wondering what happens to him when Antonio Brown comes back in week 16, I think it is, from his suspension, 13, 14. Yeah, so he'll be back week 16. I mean, Antonio Brown was a wide receiver 1 in the short time that he played. He was.
Yeah, good problem for the Bucs to have. It's not even a problem. It's a good opportunity for the Bucs. It's a problem for us. And we'll go back to 2 out of the 3 have big games, and one of them is weirdly not used that much because teams will roll their coverage towards that player. Let's do one more, and then I got to do one more piece of business.
Okay, so I got one more. You want me to go one more statement, right? Because this is my favorite one. Through 14 games this season, Hunter Renfrow is wide receiver what? Take a guess.
7.
12. But it's because the first few games he had almost like nothing. But is that insane that he is a wide receiver one?
I resisted putting him over like Ruggs and Edwards at one point, and how that didn't age too well.
Forget that. I was getting questions, should I start him or DK Metcalf this week?
I actually had him ranked ahead of Metcalf. In fact, that was a discussion Chris and I had on the show this past week. And as you well know, because you listen to every moment of every
show. It's crazy. I do.
Yeah. And that was just what do you do with, and by the way, okay, with Metcalf, the sequence yesterday was ridiculous. He had a touchdown called back due to a penalty. He had another play where the guy basically tackled him. It was going to be an easy touchdown, so they got the PI. The next play, he runs a slant, and Wilson throws it behind him. It was come on. And then, of course, someone else gets the touchdown. That's the way the day went. It was just one of those things where he should have had a much better day than he did.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you have to start him. It doesn't matter. You don't have anybody better. I mean, if you have a Hunter Renfrow, sure, you're going to start him over there. But it's Tyler Lockett is still connecting well with Russell Wilson. But for some reason, and who knows what it is, it could be one of those things where you hear about an injury after. But DK Metcalf, you're not surprised anymore when he goes 4 for 40. You're kind of expecting that now. And if you get the big game, you get it. But you're still not going to bench him. And most people that have 3 receivers in a flex, or 2 receivers and 3 flex, whatever your league format is, you can't bench him. It's too tough.
I agree. Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to tackle injuries, but first, quick note from our friends at Thrive. Thrive is back for another season of fantasy football, and they're running huge guaranteed contests each week this NFL season. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up today and get a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you claim your free RotoWire subscription. 1, visit rotowire.com/thrive. 2, deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. And 3, play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Big thanks to Thrive, as also our sponsors on the Blue Wire Network. Happy to be posting our podcast on this network all season long. Jeff Erickson with Alan Soslowski. Let's talk a little bit about injuries. We talked Lamar, but there's a lot of other big ones. Austin Eckler left in the third quarter with an ankle injury. A lot of people are speculating high ankle sprain. But then Brandon Staley's like, hey, he could have returned this game. And remember, everyone was talking about the mound of tape they're putting on that ankle to try to get him back in there. But go ahead.
It looked like, I'm saying it looked like, I mean, he is a Superman. He's like you remember Terminator 2 when they would split the liquid Terminator in half and he would just like cut back together and go back, and keep marching forward. Austin Eckler is one of the toughest SOBs in the game, man. I mean, you cannot keep that guy down. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays next week. And yes, that tape job, it looked like he had like a fake leg on. It was ridiculous. And by the way, there was another injury, funny thing that happened too. I don't know if you saw DJ Moore got hit in the head with the blue tent. Did you see that?
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. So not only did he get injured,
health examined. Thank God it wasn't like he got the concussion and then got hit in the head again. But
yeah, can you imagine if that's the injury? But going back to Eckler, I mean, if let's say he does rest and you need him for the fantasy playoffs, right? I mean, you have two guys that got equal amount of carries, Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly. So do you have a preference? I mean, we'll get down to this a little bit more in the sneaky ads video that we're going to do later today in post. But which one of those guys do you trust more, or is it just like another committee running back? Who knows?
So this is my bias time here. Justin Jackson, ball carrier, went to Northwestern. So I love Justin Jackson.
And he's good. He's a good player.
He's good. He's not fast. That's the problem. You'll notice like on his big runs, he always gets caught from behind. He lacks that top end speed. He's fast in real life, just not fast in football. So you got to clarify that. But I think I like him slightly better. But it's really going to be a committee if they play. Now, remember, they play Thursday night. They play against the Chiefs. So massive game, but short turnaround. Tough call.
Yeah, both are going to be playable. So if you pick either one of them up in your waiver wire run and you need a running back, you could play either one. Just, whoever gets the touchdown is going to have the 16-point day. The other guy might have 7 or 8 points. I mean, obviously anything can happen, but I think that if Josh Kelly is going to be cheaper, or if he's the one that you zero bidded on or that somebody forgot about, because everyone, I think, is going to gravitate towards Justin Jackson, and rightfully so. He's probably the better bet. But I think either one of those guys is playable on Thursday in the matchup.
Yeah, probably so. The football team had two big injuries. Terry McLaurin got a bagel after suffering an early concussion. Uh, you know, concussions, we have to just follow along with the protocol like everyone else. Sometimes the guys are out 5 days, sometimes they're out 5 weeks, and so we'll just have to watch that one. Big division game against Philly. Washington's still in the playoff hunt, but that was a pretty big loss to Dallas this past week. Dallas pretty much has the division not quite clinched, but it's almost there. But huge game. But they might also be without McLaurin. They might also be without Taylor Heinicke, who left with a knee injury. He left briefly in the first half too. Kyle Allen got a series. I think Heinicke got banged up a little bit after that 4th down sack fumble TD. What a massive play that was. It was just a rough day all around for Washington.
Relative to expectation, wouldn't you say that Terry McLaurin has been one of the bigger busts? I mean, we were all excited about him. I know you were excited. I was excited about him. If somebody took him in on the 2-3 turn in the summer, I would be like, yeah, sure, that makes sense. No problem. But he's about wide receiver 20 on the year. But those are also buoyed by some big weeks early on. You've been playing him because you have to, but it has been brutal for him. I don't, next year will be an interesting rank for him, but obviously he's probably going to be out next week. I mean, you never know. You guys do better concussion work than I could ever even imagine to do. But, but yeah, I mean, it's been bad. It's been bad for Terry McLaurin. And if you made your playoffs with him, you probably still have to start him if he plays. But Cam Sims looked good. And, was one of the guys I liked in the preseason. One of those deep 30-man dynasty players. But right. Cam Sims made an insane catch.
Well, I mean, it's funny. You're looking at, he did getting the butt cheek down, basically the knee down, the hip down,
drag the cheek.
That was pretty awesome. But that whole area was kind of fraught with peril. AJ Brown has obviously dealt with all sorts of issues health wise there. McLaurin actually looks good in comparison when you look at it from that standpoint. Allen Robinson has been an utter disaster.
Yeah.
Robert Woods obviously is out for the year, and he was having his bad games as well. That area has not been clean. Amari Cooper missed a couple games because of COVID. He's been fine.
Out.
Yeah. Of course, if you get Cooper Kupp there, then we're not even having this conversation. But if you got Keenan Allen, you're fine. It's not, this week notwithstanding with COVID. But Godwin, you've been plenty fine with too.
Who's been really interesting over the last month when we're talking wide receivers is Debo Samuel. I mean, go back to his targets in the beginning of the year. This is how he started off his target, where it's 12, 8, 10, 13, 9, 11, right? I mean, you're like, oh my God, double-digit targets. Now, his targets over the last, month are 1, he didn't play the week before, 1, 1, 5. He's
Bizarre,
getting 8.
Yeah, he's still paying the bills because he's running the ball though. It's crazy, but yeah, I'd rather see him as a receiver than a running back.
Right, and if he didn't get in the end zone yesterday, he would have had like 6 fantasy points. I mean, it's very strange what's happening. He's doing like a poor man's Cordell Patterson impression right now.
Keep in mind though, I don't know. He wasn't 100%. He wasn't on the field for every snap. He took like a series or 2 off here and there. Kittle's fully healthy. That's the other thing. Kittle's back and Ayuk's out of the doghouse. So now they have multiple options. Plus they don't have a traditional running back right now that's all that effective. Without having Mitchell out there, that changes a lot of the things in the offense too. Kareem Hunt left yesterday with an ankle injury. This is his second major injury, it seems like, of the year. Been tough. The Cleveland running backs also are in the bust conversation too.
Yeah, I mean, where you took Nick Chubb, it's not looking good. I mean, that whole second round is, with very few exceptions, if you didn't take Joe Mixon, you're probably not happy. Maybe you got Justin Jefferson there, you're happy. But Nick Chubb, that's what I'm saying. The young wide receivers with this extreme upside are going to be the players that go. This is going to be one of those 2015 where everything swung back to wide receiver. Yeah, sure. If Derrick Henry comes on and has a good playoff, he'll be a top pick. I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to take Christian McCaffrey as a top 5 or 8 pick. The Cleveland running backs, to answer your question, that has been a disaster too. I mean, but in the beginning of the year, it was going good. You could start both Chubb and Hunt. It's just tailed off. And I think that plugs back into our conversation about Baker Mayfield that we had earlier in the podcast.
I'd agree with that. A lot of stacked fronts that they're finding themselves facing. Speaking of Derrick Henry, he could be back week 18. Check your waiver wires this week. If you're playing like in a all point, and I know people don't have Super Bowls, their fantasy Super Bowls usually in week 18, but there are some. And then there's like the stake league, we still have a total points thing in week 18. So that's something to keep in mind there too. Anything else you want to hit? We got to get going here. Any other points before we head out?
No, I think we said it all, man. This was good. I always love just doing a potpourri of topics with you flying around. So it's always fun for me.
Very good. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this podcast. Stay tuned. We're going to do sneaky ads in a moment here, and then I got the radio show with Liss. But thanks again for listening. Thanks to WynnBET for their continuing sponsorship all season long. Take care. Have a great day.